WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I'm in Scotland, to be exact. I'm in the Lowlands, a brand new distillery named Kingsbarns. Dream to dram. Yay. So, whiskey base number 124875, 46%, 43 euros, which is about $50. Now, before I start, I want to talk a little bit about the history of this distillery because it's a very interesting beginning with a crash and then the success. We have in Scotland a wonderful place called St. Andrews. Not St. Andrews Air Force Base, St. Andrews in Scotland, where maybe the best golf courses of the world are. And so millionaires and billionaires come to Scotland, go golfing, and of course they ask, where can I go visit a distillery? Hey, I'm in Scotland, and usually the answer was, it's about 2.5 hours. And people are like, I can't do 2.5 hours back and forth. No, sorry. And so there was a golf caddy named Douglas Clement. Douglas Clement is one of those really interesting personalities. At the moment, he actually has Kingsbarns tattooed on his arm, and he's just a great guy, but not maybe the best business entrepreneur in the world. So, his idea was, after about being a caddy for 10 years, hey, I've been asked so many times by so many millionaires, I'm going to build my own distillery. So he actually pulled out all those old business cards he had laying around, found 32 investors, raised £100,000 in seed capital very, very quickly, and said, okay, good. Let's plan. Let's see what we really need. So they found they planned everything. They found out they needed £1.6 million to build a distillery. So, the government of Scotland actually wanted to grant him £670,000. So all he needed to do basically was to raise £1 million. Went to crowdfunding, tried to find the money, didn't work out. The whole project basically crashed and burned, and that was in 2012. Well, during this time of Douglas Clement's success, let's just call it that, the family Wems became interested in this project. Now, William and Isabel Wems, they are very, very, let's just say successful people. Whatever they do basically succeeds, and what they touch that turns almost into gold, alright? So they do have their own whiskey line, they do have their own independent bottling, and they found out, just like Signatory and all the others, hey, if we're going to have great whiskey in the future, we're going to have to make it ourselves. The big boys are not going to share anymore, so we're going to make our own distillery. So they approached Douglas Clements and said, hey, we'll buy your idea of Kingsbarns. They did it. January 2019, Douglas Clement sold the company to Wems, and in 2014, it actually became reality. There was a visitor center, there was a distillery, and they started actually producing whiskey. So, great story. Douglas Clements is still on the board as much as I know. He's still in the visitor center every once in a while. He's still being a golf caddy. He's still enjoying life, but he is not the business operating manager here of the distillery. So they bought 4-size pot stills, a 8,000 liter wash still, a 4,800 liter spirit still. Just in comparison, Glenfarclas, 29,000 liters for their wash still, 25,000 for their spirit still. All right, so they're going to produce between 200 and maybe maximum 400,000 liters a year here. So this is one of the smaller new distilleries, and they really want to stay small. Now, the other thing they have here is while they took out this old barn, Kingsbarns, and they restored it and they converted it into a distillery, they found this Dove cot, C-O-T, and that's where the doves actually would be in terracotta little tiny boxes, and they would live there. 600 different places for different doves there. And so they decided to keep that. They restored that on the bottle, which is, I think, one of the best looking bottles in the industry at the moment. There's doves and there's stars and there's all these little tiny intricate things you can see on the bottle. Even that dove cot is there. Very, very, very nice. It's distilled, the whiskey at 72% comes off the still, usually on average, goes into the cask at 63.5%, average, nothing special there. But what is a little bit special are their STR casks. STR, shaved, toasted, recharred. So these are rejuvenated casks that we have here in Europe more and more. I actually did a video about Codswolds Founders Reserve, which I thought was one of the best young whiskeys out there on the market at the moment, between 3 and 4 years old, 60.9%, and they use a very, very high percentage STR. Thank you, Jim Swan. I'm sorry you died, you're deceased. I'm so sorry. You were one of the grandfathers of whiskey, one of the people that actually helped Cavalon and Codswolds and even here Kingsbarn to become what they are today. I'm not going to compare it because that's just so much better. That's an English whiskey with a lot of flavor, a lot of punch in the mouth type of wow. And this is a Lowland. This is an Auchentoshan and similar thing. This is like a Rosebank. If you ever had a Rosebank, those were very, very nice after a very, very long time in the cask. But they're still a very delicate whiskey. And I think this is what they're trying to do here. All right, so if I try the nose, I really thought about this. 8 to 12, maybe 8 to 12-year-old whiskey if I didn't know. 3 years old. So excellent. Well done there. Tomatin, maybe the 12-year-old would be a little bit similar to this in the nose, just so I have a little bit of feeling here. All right? So Tomatin is just across the board in the Highlands. Actually, it's almost in the Lowlands, so it's one of those things. I get a lot of tropical fruit. Lychee, mango, papaya, and a little bit of star fruit. Vanilla, a little bit of alcohol, a light barrel char, but a little bit of maltiness as well. It's a very fruity, nice type of whiskey. Oh, it reminds me a little bit, not exactly, a little bit of Dingle, their first batch release, which was also tropical fruit. But this is more of a darker Scottish, not the light and bright vanilla buttery type of Irish whiskey. Very pleasant. Very, very, very pleasant. For 3-year-olds, amazingly pleasant, to be honest. All right, let's try it. 46%, non-chilled filtered. Now, there's explosion of one alcohol, a peppery, white pepper type of moment, but also an explosion of flavors at the same time in your mouth. It's just a boom. And it's a really interesting moment. That vanilla, lychee, that's one of those types of oriental type of fruit. It's a type of berry. We use a lot over here for flavoring and momentarily for drinks and so on. And also a little bit of papaya, a little bit of mango. Very, very exotic type of tropical fruits. Nice! That alcohol... Oh, I didn't even mention this. Look, I have a nice little Kingsbarns glass here. Maybe you can actually see that there. Nope. So, Kingsbarns. I was at the European, or at least the German release party here for Kingsbarn at the Hansa Spirit in Hamburg at the beginning of February 2019. And that's why I heard about Douglas Clemens for the first time, and I thought I really need to share that story because I just love companies that and then we resurrect it and then take off, especially when people know what they're doing. I'm going to do this. It's 46%. Why is it 46%? Because it's non-chilled filtered. Why is it non-chilled filtered? What a lot of the big boys do is they take the whiskey down to about -3 degrees Celsius, maybe about 30 or 29 degrees Fahrenheit, and then they push it through a type of cloth filter and take out all the fatty acids. Why do they do that? And especially in the wintertime, as this bottle would go below freezing temperatures, those fatty acids tend to clump up together, and then it turns into a cloudy type of whiskey. Now, we, the consumer, do not want cloudy whiskey. We want clear, we want brown, we want dark whiskeys, but not a cloudy type of fatty acids in there, at least not for when we visually see it. Now, when we taste, those fatty acids are very, very important, and that's why we whiskey geeks want to have the fatty acids in there. The industry wants to have a product that looks the same at all temperatures, even if it's been delivered in the winter to the different stores and not turned into something cloudy and so on. I was at the whiskey fair, also Hansa Spirit. It was very cold outside. It was below freezing, and I was at the Compass box stand, and she pulled out this bottle of whiskey, 43%, non-chilled filtered, and I was like, what's going on there? So she says, Jason, it's non-chilled filtered. I was like, oh, okay. And she says, don't worry. Our whiskey, because it's 43%, will, after it's warmed up a little bit, up to about 15, 20 degrees Celsius, so about 60 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, it turns back into a clear liquid. And I was like, whew. And she says, yes, it's very important because people don't buy cloudy, milky whiskey. All right, and so that's why this is 46%. I can take it down to 40% and change the flavor composite or composition a little bit. And that really does change it. The red wine, that STR cask come through a little bit more. Those new charred casks, very nice. The fruitiness is there. I have had the new make. White Dog, a moonshine, but let's just call it the new make here from the distillery, and it's a very light, fruity moment, and you really do realize the difference between the two when you compare them side by side, which I was able to do at the release party. Fairly good whiskey, still a little bit sharp, a little bit young. I constantly forget it's 3 years old. For a 3-year-old, this is amazing stuff. In the back of my head, of course, I'm comparing it to a Tomatin 12-year-old. I'm comparing it to a Glenfarclas 12 years. I'm comparing it to other whiskeys, a Bunnahabhain 12-year-olds, or a Kilkerran 12-year-old, and. I'm going to give this actually a B minus. If you can find the Kingsbarns, either buy it, or go to a fair and say, hey, do you have the Kingsbarns Dream to Dram? Yeah, the dream became reality, Dream to Dram. I like the name. And if so, try it. Do not try it after you have Lagavulin. Do not try it after you've had Ardbeg. Do not try it after you had Octomore. This is a delicate, this is a light, this is a lowland whiskey. But this has a lot of potential. I'm going to make a forecast in 10-15 years from now. This distillery might actually be able to compete with old Rosebanks. You take a 20-year-old Rosebank that's been in the bottle for about 20 years now because it's still a silent distillery. You take a 10, 12-year-old Kingsbarn, you compare the two, and it actually might be almost at the same level. In my opinion, that's my prediction. So much of a nice spirit is here to be detected. Value for money, 43 euros, $50. I, of course, would have preferred $40. I would have preferred 33 euros. So I'm going to give it a solid C here for the value for money, especially since the bottle is a very unique thing, and that also costs itself a little bit of money. All right, WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany. My question of the day is, please name the, 10 to 20 new distilleries in the next 3 years that will be offering their first inaugural whiskey. So these are distilleries that have already been built, because we need 3 years in Europe to have whiskey. Whiskeys have been built, but not yet released their whiskey because it's not 3 years old yet. Please name 10, 3, 2, 1, 15. I'm going to name one you might not have heard of except with me. It's a German distillery that also has 4 sites, pot stills, 2 big ones. That is St. Kilian. say Killian is a German single malt, which will be able to compete with anything from Scotland, I think, in the future. Very, very, very nice stuff, and that's going to be a pleasure to show you this whiskey and to be able to, in the future, be able to talk about this some more. Alright, WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys, things you might not ever see, but maybe one day you will see Kingsbarns. Great bottle. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, my videos come out. Please like, subscribe, tell others about this crazy American over here in Germany tasting things you might never see or you might never taste, but of course I have the privilege of doing so. Bye bye!